Welcome back, everybody. Well, this is going to be a compilation video because I don't know how long it's going to take. What I'm doing is I'm pretty much cleaning up the underside of the rally car. What you're probably sitting there going, okay, well, what exactly is your plan on this thing? Well, it's to take out everything that's not supposed, or we don't need, and to patch all the rust holes, and to assimilate everything back into the chassis, like especially like the rear suspension. Basically, I'm cutting out all of the subframe except what's holding these control arms on. And you have to remember, a subframe has the piece of metal and another piece of metal, and it's hollow underneath. And what's hollow underneath is you want the top metal, which is holding everything in. The hollow point, or the hollow piece of metal that bolts to the chassis, I'm just taking it out. That's it. It's pretty basic. Yeah, I've been kind of dreading this. Yeah, I've been putting it on. That's why I did the R5 motor, you know. But the whole thing is, I guess, got to do it. And what does I did it all basically on the Sport over here, and I explained it all on there. But I'm just going to just do a compilation of. This is mainly just to prove to you that I do my own crap work. You know, I think I've kind of proven it anyway. But you know, humor me. This is I'm trying to film it, saying, all right. It's, how can I put this? It's horrible, but you got to do it. And once you do it, you understand. Because anybody who talks to me, they, oh, I built a rally car. Well, I paid someone to do this. I paid someone to do that. And you really didn't build a rally car. You paid someone to do that. You know? Yeah, that's the only thing. It's just like, I understand people who actually get down there and get into the muck and the shit, you know, and actually do it. So that's kind of what, you know, mucking the shit. Well, definitely describes this car. Yeah, it will be nice in the end, but oh my god, I keep looking at the amount of work. That's why I've been kind of dreading it, because I just have to go get my mask on, get my grinders out, and just start cutting. And I can't think about it. I just got to go. And that's the reason why I don't want to do too much talking in it. You know, this introduction is talking, and at the end I'll do some talking, and I'll go through and say, hey, this is what I did. But you just get compilations of what everything did, what I did, you know, because I just need to just muckle down and do it. And it's one of these worst jobs, and I'm going to tell you right now, when you're doing your cars, you're going to sit there and you're just going to dread going out to do it. And then everybody does it. Everybody dreads going out to do it because it's not fun. It's not like, oh boy, I built an exhaust header. That's fun. That's fun. This, not fun. But I want to show you that I did it, you know? So, all right, without any further ado, I'm procrastinating here. So let me get off my fat ass and just do it. I think she looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the front suspension now. The reason why I'm hopping back and forth, I'm picking the hardest things to do. The hardest thing is the front suspension and to tie in all the engine mounts and all that stuff. So that's the hardest thing to do. So I'm going to go there first. I got to give this place a sweep, and then we're going to go straight there. So all right, I'm just going to zip over there. I didn't really want to start talking on this, but I had to. All right, I did the rear section. It takes an awful lot to do the rear section because of all the grinding and stuff like that. It was very time consuming, a lot of measuring, a lot of templates and all that other stuff. But I wanted to do the second hardest thing was supporting or bracing up the front control arms and bracing the engine mounts. I ran into a big problem up here, and now that it's on the rotisserie, I actually saw the problem because I never saw it before. My original intent was to use a 1/8" plate to go from here to the engine mount, here to here, box it in. It'll be great. What happens when you have the rod on the rotisserie? It kind of, see right here, this section right here? Here's the top portion of the chassis. It goes down here, then it curves back up. This collects everything. What happens? Well, if you have salt, dirt, rain, muck, everything roll down this frame rail and sits there for 30 years, well, what happens is when I looked inside here, there was tons of just rust flaked off from the inside of the chassis. It looks just like this, except it's not through, and this is the top portion of the rail. Now, the big thing is I got to make sure, I got to have decent metal to get there, because right now this is so thin that if I welded a plate from here to here and welded onto this, it wouldn't work. At least in my mind, it won't work, because it's like a chain. The strongest part of the chain is the weakest link. Well, this would be an extremely weak link. So what I have to do is cut out a section of this frame rail, take the 1/8" plate, go all the way in, weld it onto this side, weld it onto the top, plate it, and then go back out and box everything in so it's extremely stable. That's the big thing. Now after it becomes stable, all right, then I can do the back, which I will, and then I'm going to do this side. But first things first, a helpful safety tip, and what I'm thinking of that's going to present a real big problem is when I cut this section out, is it collapsing on itself because it's on this angle and there's so much force that's being exerted on here. So what am I going to do is I'm going to take a bar, this bar, go from here to make sure this frame rail right here is supporting this frame rail. And what am I using? A Coupe GT door bar. Of course. You got to recycle something. So I had to. But the whole thing is I got to cut this out. I got to get my stuff on, weld this bar on first before I do anything. And then I can cut this all out, do this side, flip it over, cut the bar out, and swap it from here to here to make sure this is completely stable when I do that side. So I just thought I'd tell you what I'm doing. And I better stop dallying because I just have to get my cutters and just cut. And it's great. You have an office chair. You come in here. This is where I'm going to do all our rust work. But I got to get this done first. All right, let me go get my stuff on so we can get back to finishing up the suspension. before I start on the very last side, this is what I have to do. I have to get more metal, thick metal, strong metal, in order to weld into that rusty shitbox. All right, now, what am I going to use? This right here. This, you go on Craigslist, and you get old compressors. Why is that? This right here is the plate. Extremely stiff. It's the plate that I used on the other side and in the back for metal because it's really thick, it's really strong, and it's free. And plus, you know, why was he giving away the compressor? Well, I guess one of the heads doesn't work. The motor works good because that's why I got it. And this is just a, you know, a thing that, you know, I happen to, you know, I'm going to luck out having this used for metal. Also, you don't want to use these things because take a look. The guy put in screws. What he did was there's rust holes on the bottom of this because that's where the water collects. Rust hole builds from the inside out and it just creates a pinhole. What did he do? He put some rubber washers, a screw, screwed them in, and then he kept going down and down. He has 3 of them in here, so it's just like, you know, I think the tank is kind of compromised, but all right. Doesn't mean I haven't done it myself, okay? All right, now I gotta recycle this thing. I gotta pull the motor off, pull the heads off, pull all that stuff off, because I have a whole big tank that's actually in really good condition that I'm gonna use that on, and plus I might try a different head. But what it is, let me do that so we can cut this plate off and we can have the metal to do the other side. All right, this is the last point of the car, last suspension point, and it's going to be I'm not sure if it's going to be the worst or not, but as you can see, this is by far the worst condition of it. I added another brace because underneath here, it's all rotted, and I got to cut that out also. On the other side, it was not, so I'm just giving myself a little bit of protection, but I still got to do this in steps. And you'll see right here, this is all rotted out. There's this panel, and there's an inner panel. The inner panel on the other side was good. This one is bad. It rotted away. But it's sacrificial because this outer panel is still pretty decent. But I got to cut and trim that down and cut the inside here all out so I can, you know, figure out how I'm going to plate this to the other side and continue down to support the engine mount and support this and have everything braced inside. That's, yeah, that's about the only thing I can tell you. I want to at least show you what was going on. I just have to make the first cut, and that's the biggest thing, the first cut. I don't want to do it. It's the hardest. But, all right, I just wanted to show you that. This is what I'm working with. Not much, but let's just rebuild it. We got plenty of scrap metal. That's better than this. That's the thing. It's better than this. Okay, let's go. Well, I am calling this the end of part one. Because I'm probably going to forget what I did by the end of part two. So, yes, this is a lot of work. But I needed to get this stuff done. I needed to get it into a point where it's basically everything's boxed in, everything's going to be secure. Let me show you, let me bring you over here, let me show you what I'm going to do, or what I've done, so I don't forget, and then I'm just going to continue on trying to fix everything. So, yeah, it's first things first, let me show you this, then I'm going to flip it up onto its end, then we're going to go back and forth, and then call it, and be done with it. Yeah. Here in the engine bay, all I wanted to show you was this. This right here is the gusseted plates, or gusseting plates, from the chassis leg to the center section and firewall. That's what I wanted to show you up here. Also, these top plates are all put in, you know, that are going in, all welded up. Every single thing I have here is welded, and it's pretty thick steel. It's thicker than what they used in the actual chassis legs themselves, plus it's all boxed. Let me roll this thing up onto its side and show you exactly what I did, so we can end this part A, or part one, and get going, because I got to flip the thing back over and clean up all of this, you know, fill all the holes, make sure everything is put together, welded, all these are filled, you know, so yeah, loads of fun. All right, let me just do that. Well, now that you know what's in the upper section in the engine compartment, take a look at the lower section. This is don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. But what thing is, what did I try to do? I tried to make these box sections right here, which stiffen everything up on the chassis, do as many things as possible. First and foremost, control arm mounts are very, very stiff into the chassis, are overly, they're underly built basically, because I use bigger metal than what you probably need. The lowest gauge in here is probably, I think, is 14 gauge. The highest is at least 1/4 inch thick steel. And I use a lot of 1/8 inch plate all the way around. Also, what I used here is I used the plates to come down to support and box in the mount for the radiator and the mount for the engine mount. Same thing over here. I used the plates, cut them out, connected everything to make sure everything is boxed in. Right here is the rear of the skid plate mount, which I boxed in this section right here with weld. Same thing with this. I boxed all this section into the chassis to support the controller mount and to box it in to the transmission mount. Same thing over here, but I had to redo this. Also, I have indentations here and here. What is that for? It's for you to get a wrench in really fast. That's the reason why. I don't want to have a lot of stuff in the way. Yes, I had to have this section right here, but it is for this mount right there. That's the reason why I have this box section. Also, you're probably wondering why I did so much work to create such a stiffening structure for the entire chassis. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason because I want the control arms to bend before this stuff bends. I think they will, because it's 4 times the size of the steel and box section than a standard control arm. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, well, why don't you just box the inside and do it flat on the outside? Well, you have different crashes, especially if you're rallying or hee-hawing a thing. Let's just say I put a number of cars into the woods. And what happens is you have a couple of crashes when you do with the front end. First one, you go off, and you go off like this. You slide into the thing. What happens is the wheel is right here, and the wheel is trying to be pushed back this way. So you want these sections right here to take the force to basically bend the control, you know, when the control arm bends, this doesn't move. That's why I box both sections like that. Same thing, you know, if this is being pushed in this way, you want an awful lot of metal right here so it doesn't allow it to be pushed. It allows the control arm to bend. Also, I really put a huge amount of box section on this side right here because, and it's because of a crash. I basically spun the car hard, and what it is, I went in backwards. And what it is that the wheel right here, when you go in backwards off the road, the wheel is wanting to push forward. When you push forward, you need this box section right here so the control arm bends and this doesn't move. That's a big thing. So It is what it is. And I'll tell you about the next crash on the rear. The reason why I did it that way, you know? So, all right, let's go to the back side and let me show you what I did there and we can finish up the episode. Here we are in the rear section of the chassis. What it is, we have all these, same thing as the front. Everything is gusseted to the actual chassis rails, you know, and it's not really put onto the actual body itself except for back here, which has been all gusseted and plated to the actual chassis. This has all been plated to the actual chassis. These have been plated to the actual rails right here. Now, as you saw with, you know, in the earlier section of it, the rails right here are basically triangulated in to act like a cantilever type of transfer of force. What it's just like inboard shock absorbers on like, you know, like McLarens or whatever. What it is you have a rod that comes up, you have a transfer, a pivoting point, and that transfer or pivoting point pushes on the shock absorber and does the dampening and spring rates and all that stuff. So all it's doing is transferring force to go from here to there. Same thing here. From here, and it's going to triangulate into the actual chassis rails. Now you're probably wondering why I built the rear so heavy just like I did the front. Well, it's from a previous crash. I was on a stage for the better part. It was a hill climb, but I call it a stage. And I was going around this gravel section, and my rear wheel, this side right here, just slowly got off into the ditch because, you know, you're running tarmac tires on a gravel stage. Yeah, that's just what happens. But, you know, beside the point, I got a little loose, and when my wheel went into the ditch, unbeknownst to me, there was a piece of granite like this. It shot the rear end of the car up like 6 feet. It broke the wheel. It snapped the wheel. It didn't touch the tire, which was really crazy. But it broke the wheel. I came back down. It's just like, oh my God, what the heck happened? But that's the reason why I put a lot of strength into the rear section, because guess what? I've crashed. I'm going to do the same thing. Same thing with the front. So, let's go over here. I'm going to show you the metal that I used and what I recycled. And that way, we can end the episode so I can get on to finishing the rust work. Isn't this crazy? Probably wondering, what the hell? Filing cabinets, drafting tables, table saw, air compressors, an old furnace. All of this stuff is recycled. The door bars are one's from an Audi, one's from a Passat. And yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty cool. What can I say? I'm trying to, you know, take a rust bucket old Audi and I'm trying to resurrect it for as little money as possible. And I want to show you, go out, get yourself a rust. If you can go out and get yourself a rust bucket, your metal is free filing cabinets, you know, and get an old furnace if you need to, and old tool, old compressors that are rotted out and stuff like that. That's what you want. You can recycle all the metal and you can make it into something cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, it really sucked when it was doing this. It was horrible. But at the end of the day, when you're having a beer or a coffee and you're looking at it going, you know what? I took this junk that people were throwing away and I'm making something that actually looks pretty fucking cool. I think it looks pretty neat. You know, and I think it's gonna work. If, you know, with all the cars that I've crashed and all the stuff that I've broken, hopefully I can bring it into this and say, okay, well, this is from my experience. I'm going to build this and this is going to work. Whether or not it does, I still don't know. But we have the ability to change it if we do. That's the only thing. So, but thank you very much for showing up. Remember, none of this is hard. It's miserable, but it's not hard. You know, I'm just some dumb hillbilly out here in New Hampshire trying to save an old rust bucket Audi and make it look cool. And I'm trying to utilize all the stuff that people were throwing away. That's it. You know? And if you want to say that's good for the environment, I think it is. So thank you very much for showing up. And, you know, I did say that I was not going to speak throughout the entire video of trying to get this thing, all the rust work done. But you know what? I had to. Okay, call me a lying sack of shit. I had to. Because to explain that stuff, I thought that was more important. So this is the end of part 1. I don't know when part 2 is because this took a long time. but I want to get it out there and say thank you very much for showing up. I appreciate it. Remember, you can do all of this. You can do it. Trust me. Nothing special. Hope you have a great day and see you next time. Bye.